Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really jumping into something pretty fascinating and honestly kind of bewildering. We're talking about alleged UFO crash retrievals. The stories about crashed disks and, well, the beings reportedly found inside. And we're not just making this up or pulling from random blogs. Our main source here is very specific. It's Leonard H. Stringfield's UFO Crash-Retrievals status report 2. It came out way back in January 1980. And this thing, it's packed. It's his careful collection of alleged firsthand witness stories, military leaks, his own investigations. It's really something.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission today really is to try and unpack that, to sort of cut through the static and pull out what Stringfield was actually reporting. What were people claiming they saw? How consistent were these stories? And what were the implications back then? We'll look at the claims, the denials, and this thread of secrecy that just runs through everything. It's
right.
Well, it's thick.
Definitely. And just to set the scene, Stringfield himself wasn't just some armchair researcher. He got tangled up in some pretty heavy stuff, sensitive info, even direct threats. It really makes you think about what he might have been onto. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's unpack this whole thing. So Stringfield really started digging deep into these retrievals after his book in '77, Situation Red, the UFO Siege. He'd mentioned crashed UFOs and bodies in passing.
Right, and apparently that just opened the floodgates. He started getting all this new information, often from people you wouldn't expect, and that led to this really key moment, his talk at the 1978 MUFON Symposium in Dayton. Retrievals of the third kind, he called it. That talk, it seems, acted like a magnet, drew out even more informants, a lot of them anonymous, many claiming military or intel backgrounds. They were sharing these incredible stories, sometimes claiming they'd actually seen the bodies themselves.
But it wasn't just a simple presentation, was it? The stuff surrounding that talk is...
Well, it's pretty nuts. He apparently got these really weird threats, like before and during the symposium. Imagine getting a call at 4:30 in the morning, the day you're speaking. Then, like moments before going on stage, someone physically confronts him.
It's wild. And then right after he finished speaking, these 3 guys, armed, plain clothes, apparently whisk him off stage. They hustle him through a press conference he didn't even want, take him to his hotel. Only his room's being changed, without him asking.
And they basically kept him there, right? Told him not to tell anyone his new room number. Just stay put until dinner. Super strange.
Yeah, and Stringfield himself, he wasn't sure what to make of it. Was it real protection from some, lunatic adversary, as he put it? Or maybe it was all a show. A way to scare off other potential informants who might have approached him there. He did have this CIA contact who'd warned him before about having sensitive material and told him to always stay in crowds.
Right, so maybe there was a real threat. Possibly. But then months later, this same CIA guy supposedly gives him this other explanation. Said it was all just shenanigans of a movie studio. Can you believe that?
A movie studio? Why?
Apparently, this studio had some secret government documents, maybe even film, about crashes and bodies. They were worried Stringfield would steal their thunder before they could release it, so they tried to intimidate him.
That sounds almost as strange as the first explanation. A movie studio pulling that kind of stunt.
I know, it's layers of weirdness, isn't it? But
Right.
Whatever the truth behind the threats, it definitely seems to have pushed Stringfield's research in a specific direction.
Yeah, he started focusing less on just, lights in the sky or close encounters. He really zeroed in on what he called the UFO Crash-Retrieval syndrome, the craft, and specifically the alleged alien bodies.
Exactly. He felt that if this information, the stuff he believed was being suppressed, suddenly got out, it would have this huge philosophical impact. Though interestingly, he didn't think it would cause mass panic, like War of the Worlds style. He figured people were kind of conditioned to stress after World War II.
That's an interesting take. And he was pretty careful about how he handled the information, wasn't he? Trying to sort the good from the maybe not so good.
Oh, definitely. He was very methodical for someone dealing with such, explosive claims. He set up these categories. Class A was, for his primary sources, the first-hand accounts, the core stuff.
We eyewitnesses.
Right. And then Class B was for, new leads, other relevant info, things that needed more digging, secondary stuff, essentially.
Yeah.
And he wasn't afraid to correct himself either. He updated details from his earlier work and changed a date here from 48 to 50, another from 73 back to 53, corrected a location. That shows some dedication to getting it right, especially with all that weirdness happening around him.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is where it starts to get really specific. Let's dive into some of those Class A accounts he documented. Let's start with Case A1. This sounds like a pretty major one.
It really is. This involves a former U.S. Naval intelligence officer. He claimed he was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and saw 5 crates arrive on a DC-7. He said 3 of them contained bodies.
Bodies. What did he say they looked like?
He described them as about 4 feet tall, hairless. Heads were disproportionately large. Skin looked brown under the hangar lights. Small mouths, noses weren't very distinct, and they wore these tight, dark suits. He even thought one looked female because of, like, chest bumps he noticed.
Wow, just seeing that. And wasn't there a detail about one still being alive? That part always gets me.
Yeah, that's a really chilling part of the account. He heard from a crew member, supposedly, that one of the beings was actually still alive inside the crashed craft when the recovery team got there. They apparently tried to give it oxygen, save it, but didn't work. Died shortly after.
God, imagine that scene. And the craft itself, what did he say about that?
Well, the officer heard it was tracked by some kind of special tracking equipment out at Mount Palomar in California. They found it intact, apparently. And it was also shipped to Wright-Patterson. He also mentioned seeing photos there later of a different retrieved UFO that had these weird symbols on it. Glyphs, he called them. So they looked like Sanskrit.
Sanskrit like glyphs.
Oh, okay.
And the secrecy around all this.
Oh, it's intense. The officer specifically recalled being told, point blank, "You have seen nothing, heard nothing, and you sure as have consigned nothing."
Doesn't get much clearer than that, does it? Okay, so let's move to case A3, another Wright-Patterson account.
Yes, this was from a former Army intelligence officer, Stringfield, called him J.K. This was back in 1966. J.K. claimed he saw 9 deceased alien bodies. They were about 4 feet tall, grayish skin this time, and they were preserved in deep freeze conditions under well-lighted, thick glass enclosures, right there at Wright-Pat. He was even told there might be as many as 30 bodies held there.
30 bodies.
Yeah.
Frozen. And J.K. also mentioned something about special recovery units, right? The Blue Berets.
Yeah, that's right. He said these units were basically on standby, a constant ready state just for UFO recoveries. And they apparently used diversionary tactics to keep the public away. Things like creating power outages deliberately.
Deliberate blackouts to cover up a UFO retrieval. That's quite a claim. It suggests a really organized, ongoing operation.
It does, and JK's account gets even wilder. He reported 5 UFO crashes just between 1966 and 68 in the Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky area. And in one of those cases where they retrieved 3 bodies, he claimed there was actually a skirmish, like a firefight between our military units and the alien forces.
Oh, skirmish, like they shot at each other. Why?
Apparently, it was due to uncertainty of the aliens' intent, just chaos and confrontation during a retrieval. It's a stunning detail if true.
Absolutely stunning. And this ties into the idea of data suppression, too, doesn't it? J.K. mentioned a computer system.
He did. He described this computer bank, or dump file, at Wright-Pat, supposedly holding all the secret UFO info going back to 1948, with backups elsewhere. And crucially, he insisted this data was completely off-limits, not something you could get through the Freedom of Information Act. Totally firewalled.
Hang on. A skeptic listening might say, okay, 9 bodies here, 30 there, skirmishes, secret computers. How do we know these aren't just stories building on each other? Maybe people heard rumors and filled in the gaps. How did Stringfield address that?
That's a fair point, and Stringfield was definitely aware of the folklore aspect. His main method was looking for consistency in specific, non-public details across sources who supposedly shouldn't know each other. He wasn't just taking broad claims. He was looking for those weird little details that matched up, like this next bit from JK's account. JK talked about Senator Barry Goldwater wanting to see the UFO evidence at Wright-Patterson. Goldwater was a major general in the Air Force Reserve, very interested in UFOs.
Right. I've heard about Goldwater's interest.
Well, according to JK, Goldwater went to Wright-Pat, asked General Curtis LeMay to see the proof, and LeMay flat out denied him access, told him to basically get lost. Yeah. JK said it caused quite a fiasco on the base. Now, that's a very specific story involving famous people. Finding that same story from multiple unconnected sources would be, well, significant. Stringfield looked for convergences like that.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about those unique, verifiable details matching up. Let's move on to case A5 then. This one involves an Air Force Sergeant, MS, getting info from a Major General T.
That's the one. This account describes a crash in the southwest U.S. back in 1957. 4 humanoids recovered, but these were badly burned. About 5 feet tall this time, so a bit bigger than the others. They were wearing these silvery suits, but the heat was so intense the suits had actually fused to the flesh. Horrific detail.
Yeah. And where did these bodies end up? Same place?
Yep, shipped to Wright-Patterson, to a deep freeze morgue, kept at a chilling minus 120 degrees Fahrenheit.
Minus 120. Okay. And this same General T also talked about an incident in Nellis Air Force Base. That sounded pretty dramatic, too.
Oh, absolutely. This was supposedly in 1968. A large UFO just hovered over Nellis AFB for 3 whole days.
Yeah.
At some point, smaller craft were seen coming out of it, and one of these actually landed on the base.
Landed on an Air Force base. What happened then?
A colonel was sent out to, well, greet it, I guess.
Yeah.
But as he approached, he was hit by a beam of light from the craft and instantly paralyzed.
Paralyzed. Jeez. Did they, like, try to shoot at it?
His men were ordered to fire, yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently their weapons just jammed.
Yeah.
Wouldn't work.
Weapons jammed. Beam of light. Now, there was that really odd detail about the colonel afterwards. How he could only remember it mathematically. What could that possibly mean?
It's one of the most baffling details in the whole report, isn't it? Stringfield doesn't really offer a concrete explanation, but it fits with other accounts, not just his, where interactions seem to bypass normal language. It hints at, maybe, information being transferred differently, or consciousness working on a level we don't grasp. Maybe the experience itself was so alien, it could only be processed or recalled in abstract terms, like math.
Mm-hmm.
It's pure speculation, of course, but it really underscores the strangeness.
Yeah, truly bizarre. Okay, let's talk about Case A9, the secret movie.
Oh,
This
yeah?
sounds like potential physical evidence almost.
It does, yeah. This is fascinating. Multiple sources, seemingly independent, describe being shown the same secret 16mm film back in the early to mid-1950s. These weren't just random Joes either. They were often radar specialists, high-ranking officers, people who'd presumably need to know something, shown at different bases.
And what did they say was in the film? What did it show?
The descriptions are remarkably consistent. It starts with a desert scene. There's a circular metal silvery disc kind of stuck in the sand. A hatch is open. Then the scene shifts. Now you're seeing bodies, at least 3 bodies lying on tables.
The beings again. What did they look like in the film, according to these witnesses?
Again, consistent descriptions. Short, all looked alike. Mongoloid features were mentioned again. Skin was ashen or gray. Critically, no ears, externally anyway, and no hair.
And hands. Clothing.
Some recalled 4 fingers, with the thumb sort of tucked in or maybe vestigial, and they remembered pale green and yellow clothing on the bodies. But the big takeaway, the thing everyone seemed to agree on, was that the bodies looked identical, like clones almost.
Identical. And what happened after they saw the film? Were they just told to forget it?
Pretty much. The directive was clear. Don't relate its contents to anyone. And often right after that, there'd be some attempt to dismiss it. Oh, by the way, that film was just a hoax.
A hoax. Why show military personnel a hoax film and then tell them to keep quiet about it? That doesn't add up.
Exactly Stringfield's point. He thought it was ridiculous to think a professional studio would make such realistic-looking dummy bodies for what witnesses described as an otherwise kind of ill-prepared and shoddy film. The context didn't fit a Hollywood production.
Yeah, the logic feels backwards. Okay, one more specific case before we synthesize. A10. This is Roswell, right? The big one.
The legendary Roswell incident, yeah. Stringfield includes Major Jesse Marcel's account.
Yeah.
Marcel was the intelligence officer from the Roswell Army Airfield who handled the initial recovery in 1947. He described finding all this debris scattered over a huge area, maybe a mile square, metallic fragments, really strong but incredibly light, that famous tin foil you couldn't bend or dent, and some parchment-like material, too.
And significantly, no big crater, right? Like something light that just came apart.
Exactly. No impact depression. And he noted it wasn't radioactive.
But the official story quickly became something else.
Right. Marcel said he was explicitly ordered to tell the press it was just a downed weather balloon. His exact words were, it was to get them off my back.
Yeah.
But years later, Marcel was adamant. He said the material he found did not resemble anything off a balloon. Not even close.
And Stringfield noted a connection here to another investigation.
Yeah, he mentioned that the authors of the book, The Philadelphia Experiment, were also digging into Roswell, finding new first-hand witnesses around the same time, suggesting, these threads were starting to connect in the late 70s.
Okay, so we've heard these individual stories, right, Pat? The burned bodies, the movie, Roswell. If you pull back and look at all the descriptions Stringfield gathered, especially from the medical sources, what picture emerges of the beings themselves? Is it consistent?
It really is surprisingly consistent, especially regarding at least one type of entity. If we synthesize the details, particularly from Case A7, which focused on descriptions from medical personnel, reportedly after autopsies, well, a clear picture forms. First off, size and build. They're almost always described as small, usually between 3.5 and 4.5 feet tall. One source mentioned 5 feet, but mostly smaller, and really light, around 40 pounds.
So very slight. Thin torso, long arms, short legs.
Exactly. Long, thin arms that reach down near their knees, short, thin legs, small torso.
And the head. That seems to be a major feature in all these accounts.
Definitely. Disproportionately large head, often described as pear-shaped or like a 5-month-old human fetus was one comparison used.
Wow. And the facial features. Eyes, mouth, nose, ears.
The eyes are a big one, consistently described as large, round, but sort of almond-shaped, elongated, set far apart, maybe slightly slanted, sometimes called oriental or mongoloid in appearance, though we should be careful with those terms now. Critically, no pupils reported, just large, dark eyes.
No pupils. Okay. Mouth.
Just small slit. No real lips. Opened into a shallow cavity. No teeth were visible, apparently, but some x-rays supposedly showed a jaw structure, a maxilla and mandible. Tongue was described as atrophy.
A nose and ear?
Nose was vague, just a slight bump or protuberance with 2 nostrils, 2 narrows, and ears. No external lobes, just openings, apertures leading to inner ear canals.
So very distinct, almost standardized look. What about skin? We heard brown, grayish. Anything else? Texture?
Yeah, the color varied. Definitely not green. Stringfield emphasized that. Could be beige, tan, brown, tannish gray, pinkish gray, even bluish gray under freezer lights. A couple were charred, dark brown from a crash. The texture was interesting, described as maybe scaly or reptilian, but also elastic and stretchable, mobile over smooth muscle. One source said under magnification it looked like a mesh or a grids network.
A grid network. Weird. Hair. Odor.
Hairless bodies, maybe a little bit of slight fuzz on the head sometimes. And interestingly, no reported perspiration, no body odor at all. And another big biological point, no striated muscle like our biceps or quads. Smooth muscle, apparently.
No striated muscle. That's huge. Hands and feet. You mentioned 4 fingers earlier.
Yeah, usually 4 fingers, no opposing thumb, or maybe just a tiny trace of one. 2 fingers were often longer than the others. Some mentioned fingernails, maybe slight webbing between the fingers. Feet were often described as having no distinct toes, like the flesh was fused together, giving a sock look. Though again, x-rays supposedly showed normal foot bones underneath. One description said they looked like an orangutan's feet.
Okay, so strange external features. What about internally? This gets to biology, maybe even origin, right?
This is probably the most provocative part. The medical sources reported finding a colorless liquid inside, not blood. No red cells, so it wasn't carrying oxygen like ours. They found no evidence of food or water intake. No digestive system, no stomach, no intestines, no GI tract, no rectal opening.
No digestive system at all. How would they sustain themselves?
Exactly the question. And perhaps related, no apparent reproductive organs, no genitalia described. This led Stringfield, based on his sources, to speculate about non-human methods of reproduction, maybe cloning.
Cloning. That ties back to the identical bodies in the film, doesn't it?
It really does. Multiple sources noted the humanoids looked like they were formed out of a mold, or shared identical facial characteristics. It strongly suggests they weren't individuals in our sense, but perhaps, as Stringfield theorized, purpose-built beings. Clones, maybe biological robots, designed for specific tasks, perhaps even seen as expendable by whoever sent them.
That is a deeply unsettling thought. Purpose-built, expendable beings. And there was something about a headband, too. A piece of tech.
Yeah, mentioned in a couple of cases, A7 and an A6 comment. Some sort of headband or transceiver device worn by the entities. One medical source claimed it was analyzed and thought to be used for projection of brainwaves. Telepathy, basically. And the Air Force was supposedly trying to figure it out, maybe even use it to talk them down, to communicate and get them to land safely.
Trying to reverse engineer alien telepathy tech. Okay, so beyond these individual accounts and the physiology, Stringfield also looked at broader patterns, right? Like the Kecksburg case. That wasn't really a body case, was it?
No, Kecksburg is different, but Stringfield included it as a significant alleged retrieval event. This was back in December '65 in Pennsylvania. It started with this huge, fiery object seen streaking across the sky in several states. People reported hearing an aerial explosion, like something broke up and pieces fell. Then, near Kecksburg, this object was found in the woods, described as metallic, kind of acorn-shaped and having strange markings on it, like hieroglyphics, some witnesses said.
And it wasn't just a meteor falling, was it? There was something weird about its flight path.
That's the key detail that makes it stand out. Reports indicated it made a controlled turn, like a 25-degree adjustment in flight direction, over Ohio before it came down in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And its speed was estimated around 1,000 miles per hour. which sounds fast, but it's actually way too slow for a meteor entering the atmosphere. Meteors are usually 10 times faster or more.
Too slow and it maneuvered. That definitely points away from a natural object.
Exactly. Suggests something under intelligent control that maybe malfunctioned or was damaged.
And the military response at Kecksburg? Was it quick?
Extremely quick. A large contingent of military specialists showed up almost immediately, reportedly as fast as the state police. They cordoned off the whole area. One military spokesman on site even supposedly told reporters something like, "We don't know what we have, but there's an unidentified flying object in the woods," which is quite an admission, if true.
An official saying, unidentified flying object is in the woods. Wow. And they retrieved it.
It seems so. The local fire chief, Robert Bittner, later described seeing a big military flatbed truck leaving the site. It had a large object on the back, covered by a tarp. He estimated the object under the tarp was maybe 6 feet high, 7 feet wide, about 17 feet long. Acorn-shaped would fit that profile, where it went. Undisclosed, of course.
Of course. Now, wasn't there an official explanation involving a Soviet satellite, Cosmos 96?
There was, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the eventual explanation offered by some agencies, that it was debris from Cosmos 96 re-entering. But as Stringfield and other researchers pointed out, even if the timing kind of matched, no spacecraft or nose cone in 1965 had the capability of a 25-degree adjustment in flight direction during Earth re-entry. It just couldn't maneuver like that. So the explanation didn't really fit the eyewitness accounts of the object's behavior.
So Kecksburg remains a puzzle. Looking at all these cases together, did Stringfield see any patterns in when these alleged crashes happened?
He did. He did a statistical breakdown in Part 3 of his report, and the numbers showed a definite peak. The vast majority of the crash retrieval events he documented were reported from the 1950s. He had 20 reports from that decade.
20 in the 50s. What about other decades?
It dropped off after that. 9 reports from the 1970s up to 79 when he wrote it, 8 from the 1960s, and 7 from the 1940s. Mostly Roswell-related, presumably.
So a big spike in the 50s, then fewer later on. What did Stringfield make of that trend? Why the decline?
He offered 2 main possibilities, and they're both pretty interesting. One, maybe the secrecy just got way better. He said maybe news about the event has been more effectively controlled. The cover-up got more efficient after the initial wave. Or possibility 2, maybe the technology improved. Maybe a later model of the alleged alien craft has overcome a technical vulnerability. Perhaps they figured out what was causing them to crash near Earth, maybe our radar or atmospheric conditions or something, and fixed it. So fewer crashes actually happened later on.
Better cover-ups or better alien tech? Either way, it implies the phenomenon didn't just stop. Geographically, was there a pattern too?
Yeah, he noted most reports he gathered were from within the U.S., 27 inside versus 16 outside. And within the U.S., there was a definite tilt towards the west. The desert Southwest seemed to be a hot spot.
Okay, so when you step back from all of this, the sheer number of accounts, the threats, the consistent details about the beings, the retrieval operations, the statistics, it's a lot.
It really is. And Stringfield himself grappled with the big questions right at the end in his epilogue. He laid it out pretty starkly. He asked, essentially, is this whole UFO crash retrieval thing, the bodies, is it all just some massive elaborate hoax? Or maybe some kind of official psychological warfare deception?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
if it's real, what does it mean? What does it mean if these beings are truly alien to man? And maybe, as the evidence seemed to suggest to him, they're clones developed for tactical and expendable purposes by a higher order of extraterrestrial intelligence. That's a heavy thought.
A higher order using clones. Yeah, that's profound. And didn't Stringfield also wonder about his own role in all this? Like, maybe he was being used somehow.
He did. He openly considered if his work, publishing these reports, was maybe being allowed or even subtly encouraged by certain elements within the government or intelligence community, perhaps as one means by which some of the hidden data could be safely released, to gauge public reaction, or maybe for other ulterior purposes he couldn't guess, a controlled leak, essentially.
Wow. So even the person revealing the secrets wonders if he's part of a bigger game.
Exactly. And that ties into the final thought Stringfield leaves us with, based on that CIA contacts theory back in '78. If this knowledge is being suppressed, maybe partly to prevent, quote, unpredictable psychological impacts on society, what's the real cost of that secrecy? Decades of it. What does it do to public trust, to our basic understanding of our place in the universe? And are we right now maybe unknowingly part of some ongoing test of media and public reaction every time these stories surface? Are they watching how we respond?
That really brings it home. So the question for you, listening now, is what part of this deep dive into Stringfield's work struck you the most? Was it the consistency of the descriptions, the sheer audacity of the alleged cover-up, the idea of cloned beings? It definitely leaves you thinking.